Three new franchise locations are announced and are, in fact, now official through some reports. We had heard about one. There was some speculation. Would it actually become a thing? But enough with the rumors. They are now set in stone as Seattle, London, and Chicago will make up the 10th, 11th, and 12th franchise locations heading into next season. And now I want to give a little bit of a background on these three locations, right? Who's kind of behind them, who is pretty much in the back lines of controlling them, and how they'll be looking moving forward into the future seasons of Call of Duty Esports, right? Because franchising is by no means a one-year thing. It is a long-term investment. Let's go and start off with Chicago, right? This is an organization who backs them known as Energy. For those who have heard of this organization, it's a very well-known brand throughout esports. This particular team also has ownership in the San Francisco Shock in the OWL, and at times previously have shown interest in entering Call of Duty as well. Now, I'm personally excited about this location in particular. There was a lot of talk whether or not Chicago would be involved. Could we have another Midwest team to possibly join the fray? And I think, based off of the plot points and the way that the map works right now for franchising and where the locations are, I think it's very important, very crucial rather, for the Midwest to be represented in multiple ways rather than just one, for example. So I'm excited about this, and obviously, as someone who is from Illinois as well, so I'm kind of excited to have Chicago, one of the teams that I may, in fact, be repping. But like I said, I think it's going to be fun. I think there's a lot of history when it comes down to the Chicago area in terms of esports. It was a big kind of basis for a lot of the infancy that kind of has developed with certain Call of Duty players, and kind of is I should say, somewhat of a long-term period place where I think FPS will start to succeed. Next place we obviously have to discuss is going to be London. In terms of this location, this one will be headed up by Rect Global, who is the parent company to Rogue. Rogue have been in Call of Duty Esports in the past, for those that remember this brand being involved in Infinite Warfare, where they had guys like Johnny and BLFire, etc. Rogue, most notably right now, for those who follow other esports, are probably most well known for their LEC team in League of Legends. And I'm sure a lot of people are somewhat shocked, right, to see the name London, but not represented, or not to see Cloud9 there up next to them, right? Because, of course, for those who do follow the OWL, Cloud9 does, in fact, own the London Spitfire. And I got to say, I'm a little bit shocked by this one as well, right? When there have been talks of London, I thought, okay, well, it's probably going to be Cloud9. It would only make sense if it was them. So the fact that Cloud9, at least as of right now, is not involved with the upcoming franchise league, it is somewhat interesting that a team who has kind of shown their interest in Call of Duty Esports in the past is not diving into a location that they are somewhat represented in terms of another esport, another franchised esport, of course, under the Activision Blizzard banner. And we have heard a few talks, right, from Jack, the CEO of Cloud9, saying that he finds the idea of entering into Call of Duty somewhat interesting, but we never really kind of gained an official confirmation in terms of what he actually want to. Obviously, it's an exciting venture, but is that something that he wants to dive in right now? It seems as if it could be maybe a Season 2, Season 3, something in the future of which Cloud9 will want to get involved. But it's not going to include London. Now, in terms of this location, I think this is great. I do. I think this is great, especially for EU fans. Not only will they have Paris, but they've also got London too. And we've seen how crazy, right? We've seen how crazy the fans have been at previous events. I think this location could have one of the most passionate fan bases in the entirety of the Call of Duty world. And like I said, I'm super excited about this spot. There's been a ton of talk from players and a ton of talk from fans saying, give us a London spot. We need to be represented in some capacity. And I think it's going to be great, for the entire Call of Duty space to have London, and especially in the inaugural year of franchise, where there's been a lot of talk about, organizations not being included, or maybe similar organizations not being included. Regardless of all that talk, I think it's going to be nice where the EU fans, if they would like, can obviously go over to London and maybe kind of root on the local kind of area, because that's what franchising is all about. It wants to include the city-based locations rather than the gaming names that have transferred over, and we've had that conversation many times. Would it be worth it? I think in this particular case, it really helps it out a lot. And like I said, I'm very excited to see the London crowd possibly carry over from CWL London this year, which is regarded as many, even including champs, as probably one of the best events and probably the best crowd in Call of Duty Esports history. Now, the final spot that was confirmed today was also Seattle. Now, this one is owned by the Aquilini Group in combination with Enthusiast Gaming. This business controls the Vancouver Canucks and also owns in the Overwatch League the Vancouver Titans. So there's a lot of people who are obviously familiar with this team. If you watch other esports like the Overwatch League, you're familiar with this roster, you're familiar with this team as well. Now, Enthusiast Gaming is also the parent company to a very well-known Call of Duty esports organization. I think you might have heard of them, Luminosity, right? So it's kind of an interesting interval because when we were initially looking at these locations in combination to each other, and there were rumors saying, oh, Seattle could be out there, but there was also a report that said that Luminosity was denied an opportunity to get into the Call of Duty League. And for me, it's not really surprising that since LG is now in, right, under their parent company, that they would actually choose a location here in North America. It makes kind of sense to be centralized, right? Because it's not just one area in particular. It's not, one area here, one area across the way. They have somewhat of a controlled area when it comes down to the very north side of the United States and obviously the southern side of Canada, kind of in that close combination to each other. So I think that's a good decision for them. I think it's not too surprising that location was chosen, and it's great to be kind of having Seattle lay witness to the first year of the Call of Duty League. And like we've talked about, right, a lot of people are going to be familiar with the name Luminosity. LG has been involved with Call of Duty, dating back to Black Ops 3, and most recently, right, finished top 8 at CWL Champs. So I think we've got a really good mix, right, of OWL teams along with the returning organization in Rogue, a familiar face in Luminosity, and obviously NRG joining the fray. But the interesting thing is we talk about 12 teams. However, the discussion doesn't really end there because there have been a lot of rumors and a lot of talk coming from players and accounts across Twitter saying that there could be a possibility of, in fact, having not just 12 teams, but 16 teams in the first season of franchising, right? We've yet to see FaZe. Where could they be? We've rather yet to see what's going on right now with Lee Zybin. Is he wanting to be in Houston with Hex? Is he wanting to be in Houston with E United as well? That's kind of an interesting conversation to carry forward. And also a few other locations that I've seen a few people post about on Reddit are somewhat surprising to not be included, at least for the moment. And these are 3 locations in particular I would love to see, and ones that are already in the Overwatch League, so possibly could carry over as well. We're talking about Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Boston. I think the list kind of goes on from there, but those are 3 locations that I think would be great. I'd love to see that Boston versus New York rivalry, and I think there is a very, very solid atmosphere, right? We talk about Boston sports, how crazy the fans can be there. I'm sure that they would love to have esports as well, right? We talk about that area in particular. The East Coast loves their esports, and especially up there toward that Boston area. So I think that would be fun. I think Philadelphia is of course one to throw up there as well. That could be interesting. And like I said, these are still somewhat out there. There is still somewhat rumors saying that there could be 16 teams. It's yet to be confirmed, but that'll still be kind of a carryover type conversation that we're going to probably have in a few following weeks. Could there be a team to get entered? And honestly, if there are 13 teams involved, you could argue there's probably going to be a 14th, if not a 16th, just based off the way that the seasons, or rather the divisions, are going to work in terms of the CDL. So, like I said, I'm excited about this. I really am. I think we announced some really good locations. I think we have a really good plotting point area when it comes down to North America and EU. And like I said, could more teams be on the way? We'll have to find out.